webinar series, What Role Direction Plays with Sandy Adams. Sandy Adams is a two-time alumna from the University of Memphis with a Master of Arts in Teaching and a Bachelor's in International Relations. Sandy produces two podcasts, The Sandy Adams Show, where she teaches about business, life, and everything in between, and A Southern Girl's View with Sandy Adams that focuses on ordinary people with interesting lives and stories. Sandy's vast experience and 25 plus years of interactions with people from all walks of life and in all facets of the corporate world have demonstrated to her that mindset and motivation are critical to a person's success. Sandy is an award winning portrait photographer, social media writer, educator, historian, world traveler, and speaker. She recently relocated back to Memphis from Houston and is eager to get involved in the University of Memphis and the Memphis greater community once again. Welcome, Sandy Adams.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you so much. So welcome, everyone. It's hopefully a beautiful afternoon wherever you are. And this is the Art of Motivation series in Job Search. And today, as Willie said, we're talking about what role direction plays in motivation and also in job search. So if you have questions, I'm going to ask that you hold those to the end. Grab a pen and a piece of paper. So if you have anything that you think about while I'm talking, you can jot that down and then ask me at the end of class. Where are you watching from today? I would love to know that. So if you could pop that into the chat box. I'm always interested in where people are, where they're watching this from, whether you're in the Memphis area or in another state, another city, or even if you're someplace else in the country or the world. I'd love to know that. So if you would just pop that into the chat box, I would love to see that. And then, as Willie said, my name is Sandy Adams, and he already went through everything that I do. A social media brand strategist, a photographer, teacher, speaker, podcast host, and world traveler. And all of that stuff was made possible by the University of Memphis, by my multiple years there in the 2 degrees that I was in, that I had there. So what are we going to learn today? We're going to talk about what exactly is direction. Why should you set goals? We are also going to talk about the types of goals that there can be. We're going to talk about classifications of goals. What is SMART? We'll really dive deep into that. We're also going to talk about how all of this relates to job search and how it can actually help you. So Janine, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. She's working remotely in Collierville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us today, Janine. So as I said, what role direction plays in motivation is the topic for today. So here's a great quote. I always like to start off my presentations with quotes. I think that sets really a great foundation. And Yogi Berra, he said, if you don't know your destination, you might end up somewhere else. And that is so true. Have you ever gone out like driving? I love taking road trips, even if it's for a day. I get in my Jeep and I just start driving. But if you don't have a destination in mind, you literally could end up back at your house like within an hour because you don't know exactly which roads to take. You don't have someplace in mind and you don't have a plan. And that can make life really confusing. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. So direction is really a goal. It's a goal or multiple goals. That's really what direction is. And if you want to talk specifically about what a goal is, then let's analyze that. So it's a desired result that you or a system visualizes. You plan out and you commit to achieve it. That's really what a goal is. It's the end towards which effort is directed. Now, I highlighted these 2 words, effort and directed, because without any type of effort, you're not really going to get any type of accomplishment done. And your direction and your goals will obviously fail if you don't have that effort. And this is the 3rd part of our series. In the first one, we talked about mindset self-confidence and self-esteem. In the second episode back in October, we talked about energy, the energy component, and how that really propels you. And that is a part of this as well. So when you take your mindset and you take your energy level and you have a set goal, you're more likely to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish. Goals are dreams and they are wants, but they are specific ones. Like you can say, I want a better life, but unless you get really specific about what kind of better life you want, then there's no direction, there's no goal, there's no effort put forth to accomplish that. So this year, I made the decision in December that I wanted to move back to Tennessee. I'd been living in Houston at the time for 15 years. I made that decision that I wanted to move back. Now, what I will say is I had kind of a set date in mind. It was May, and I would move at the first week of June. And then in March, COVID hit. And so that kind of messed everything up, and I had to reformulate what I was going to do. Now, I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and I said, if COVID had not hit, I'm not sure I would have moved because I didn't really have a plan set down. I knew I wanted to move, but moving from another state is a big deal. There's a lot of things involved in it. And I had a lot of work going on in Houston. And I've had people tell me I was crazy for moving, but I had a lot of work going on. And I'm also afraid that all of that work would have kept putting off my desire to move because I did not have any type of concrete plan. I just had a big idea. I want to move. So why should you set goals? Now, some of you may, at the end of this discussion today, you may think, well, this was all pretty common sense. It is common sense. But the other thing is, a lot of times, if we don't sit and think about all of these things, we forget about them. Life takes over, other things happen, and you just keep pushing them to the side, and you don't really sit down. So even though a lot of what I'm talking about today is common sense, it's also a time to reframe your mind. It's also a time to remind yourself that this is possible. So why should you set goals? It gives to give you something that you want, that ultimately will enhance your life in some way. You obviously are not going to have a goal that is like going to make your life worse, but a goal is something that will enhance your life. It's something that will change it in a positive way. Goals activate your motivation. Goals do. I was listening to Ja Morant with the Memphis Grizzlies. He won Rookie of the Year. And he had talked about setting that goal on draft night last year or a year and a half ago, whenever it was, setting that goal on draft night, saying, I'm going to be Rookie of the Year. And then the person that didn't vote for him, the one person, he's using that person to activate his next goal. So goals can be that motivation factor. They can activate you and propel you, especially if it's something that you want. So goals also establish your ultimate destination. So in my case, I wanted to move back to Tennessee. That was my ultimate destination. It was the part in between that I had to get clear on. Identify the roads that you can take to get you there. This was something that I did 4 years ago. I went through a life change, a divorce, and I had been working for myself, and I realized I needed to have steady income coming in every month. And so I started identifying ways that I could supplement my business income with income that was steady and did not depend on sales each month. So I started identifying roads that could take me there. Goals also help you know when you have arrived at your goal. Simone Biles, when she was a little girl, wanted an Olympic medal. Now, there was a lot of stuff in between. There was a lot of goals that she had to set, and ultimately she knew what she wanted, and she achieved that goal. But it also helps you know if you've reached what you've wanted. Now, let's talk about types of goals. So you have your immediate goals, you have your short-term goals, and you have your long-term goals. I should have put another one in there called intermediate, which I'll talk about in a second. So those are your types of goals: immediate, short-term, intermediate, and long-term. Now, let's talk about your immediate goals. These are usually 1 to 30 days. Those are immediate. They can be like changing a habit, doing something like that, finishing a task. Maybe you were planning to clean out the garage at some point, and that can be an immediate goal. I want to clean out the garage. I really want to finish doing that. Let's set that goal that in 10 days I will have that accomplished. Or it can be something like painting a room. Those are immediate goals. Now, short-term goals are going to be a little bit longer, like 3 months, 6 months, those kind of things. It can be training for a marathon. That can be a short-term goal. Although for me, I don't know if that would be short-term. Passing a certification exam, that can also be a short-term goal. Learning another language, again, I don't know for me if that would be a short-term goal, but those are types of short-term goals. They are at least over a month in length, but less than a year. So let's look at long-term goals. 1 year, 5 years, those kind of things. Those are more bigger things. They're going to take a little bit longer. Building a house. Unfortunately, sometimes it does take a year. Getting a college degree. Remember, when you start college, you have a counselor, you have an advisor, and they sit down and they plan out your year. Each year for 4 years, they plan that out. They plan the classes you're going to take. You sit down and you have those goals. Those are long-term goals. But also, here's related to jobs, making partner at a law firm. That can also be a long-term goal. Now, let's talk about classifications. So you have your personal goals, which could be something as easy as training for that marathon. You have your social goals, which could be something like buying a car. You have your financial goals, which could be creating a savings account with 3 months worth of salary built up. That's what they say you should always have. And then you have career goals. And again, that can be one of those of you want to get into a company that you have a ladder there that you can get promoted, or it goes to that making partner at a law firm, those type of things. So now that we've talked about that, let's dive into the benefits of having goals. That's really important that you understand the benefits. Now, one of those is it actually helps you suffer less stress and anxiety. Because if you actually set the goal down and you plan it out, then the stress of not necessarily knowing it goes away. Because now you've actually thought about it. You've thought about it, you've written it down, and you no longer have that worry in your head because you actually have control of it now. When it's left in your head, when you don't really have a goal, then it is going to cause undue stress and can cause anxiety as well. So it helps you concentrate better. If you have that goal written down and you've broken it out and you know every step of the goal and you know when you want to accomplish that and you know when to hit those checkups in the middle of it, then you can actually focus on doing the goal. Because what I have found is when we keep everything in our head, we don't feel like we have a grasp of what we're doing. We feel really out of control. And when you feel out of control, you can't necessarily concentrate on what it is you're doing. So I've really started doing something intentional. So I went and got a planner that actually goes by the day. And my days are not always the same. So some days I may be teaching all day, other days I may be doing other things, recording videos, recording podcasts. So not every day is going to be the same. But what I've started really pushing myself to do with discipline is planning out my goals for the day for the week and for the month so that I have a better idea of what's going on. And it's like putting your laundry away. Okay. When you put your laundry away in your chest of drawers, in your closet, wherever it is, then you know where the items are and you can focus on picking out which outfit you're going to wear. Well, we haven't done that in probably 8 months, but you have a better idea of where everything is. And that's the same way when you plan out your goals. It gives you an idea of where you know where everything is, you know when you have to do what, and it allows you to concentrate better on what it is you need to accomplish. So now it also helps you with self-confidence. Because again, when you are in control of the situation, when you know what's going to happen, when you know the target dates that you have to hit, when you know what your ultimate goal is, and you can see how you're doing with it, your self-confidence is going to grow. And that's going to help your motivation. Now, another benefit is it helps you perform better in the field. Because again, you've got those goals set aside, you've got that self-confidence built up, and you're actually going to be doing a better job. Your motivation is going to kick in and you're going to be doing much better all the way around. So now we're going to talk about SMART. Learn how to be smart. And what do I mean by smart? Each one of these letters actually stands for something. And this wasn't anything that I learned about when I was younger. I learned about it later in life. I don't even know if they had it when I was in college, but SMART goals are really specific and they have a list. So let's look at each one. So now let's start with the S. So the S is talking about being specific. So if you have a goal, whether it is social, whether it is personal, whether it's financial or career related, it needs to be specific. So you set real numbers with real deadlines. Don't just say, for instance, I want a new job, or in my case, I want to move. You need to sit down and have a goal about what's your deadline, and then what do you need to get there? Be very, very specific. Second part is measurable. So you want to make sure that your goal can be tracked, because tracking your goal is important because that's what continues to keep your motivation up. It's what continues to keep your effort high, and it's what continues to keep your self-confidence up when you can see how you're doing on your goal and the direction that you're going. That's all going to help boost your motivation. So don't do something like hide behind buzzwords like brand and engagement and social influence. It really needs to be specific items. So when you track your goal and you make it more trackable, you need to put those items in there that you can actually hit. So if we talk about job search, we could talk about, okay, how many networking connections are you going to make this week? I'm going to make 5. I'm going to introduce myself to 5 new contacts in the space industry. Okay, say you wanting to move from oil and gas to the space industry. So this week, I'm going to look for 5 new networking connections in the space industry. That's a trackable type of goal. Now, the A stands for attainable. You see, a lot of times, and I see this with so many people, and I've done it as well, we make the goal so big that there's really no way to accomplish it, especially when we don't put any of the specifics in so that we can attain that goal. So in some ways, it may be so challenging that there is no way that you could ever complete it and get to your final destination. So what you should do is really then think about what it is you want. Now, in the terms of job search, which we will talk about in just a little bit, look at, do you want to change jobs completely? Do you have those skills involved that can get you there? If you don't, then before you want to get a job in the space industry and you've been in oil and gas, you need to make sure that you have some of those qualifications or some of those transferable skills that will help you go there. So that is something that's more attainable than just saying, hey, I don't have any experience in the space industry. I don't have any type of skills that would be transferable, but I want to go work in the space industry. That's a little unattainable. And you really have to sit down and think about, can you laterally move and then move up? Or what does that mean? So it needs to be something that's attainable. The other thing is, maybe let's talk in reference to a marathon, running a marathon. For me, that seems so far-fetched. So what I would probably then do is, instead of saying, I want to run in a marathon, I would say, I want to complete a 5K race. To me, that is more attainable. And I won't get burnt out as easy. And I think that I can accomplish that. But to go straight from I've never run any races to running a marathon, that's almost overwhelming. And it's going to tap down on your motivation. Your effort is going to constantly be challenged. So let's look at the R. The R is for realistic. So be honest with yourself. You know what you are capable of. Be realistic. Don't forget that hurdles you may have to overcome. So I'm being realistic when I think about a marathon. That's a lot of running. I already know I get bored after walking a mile. So how am I going to do something like a marathon? But for me, going back realistically, a 5K is much more realistic to me. I think I can reach that goal. Now, time bound. You have to have a deadline. If you don't have a deadline, there's no set end in sight. Have you ever been, I always love to use walking because it's more people can kind of relate to that. But if you just go for a walk and you just keep walking and you're not doing a loop or anything like that, you don't know where you're going. So you're going to get overwhelmed in the beginning. It can tap down on that motivation again, and it can keep your effort kind of low as well. So it always helps when you have a deadline, when you have a final thing, because it gives you something to focus on, kind of like walking a track. Because you know, I'm going to do 5 laps, and each time you come up to the start of your lap, you have another deadline that you can make. It's going to keep that motivation going. It's going to keep your effort up and up high. Okay, now, why goals fail? This is really important that you realize this as well. And I am just as guilty as anybody else of these. Your goal is not detailed. You got to be detailed. You've got to put down exactly what it is. I hear so many times people say, I want to go on a trip to Europe. Well, not recently, but I want to take a big trip. I want to go on a trip. Okay, when do you want to go? I don't know. How are you going to do it? I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. But I want to go. So that goal will probably never be realized unless the person sits down and starts thinking about money. Where do you actually want to go? Where are the hotels there? What is going to be the cost of the plane tickets? Am I going to need special clothing? How many weeks do I need to take off from work? Will that be possible? All of those details, if you don't think about all that, the goal will never be attained. There is no identifiable reward. So you could have a goal, but if there's no reward of reaching it, like you don't know what the end in sight is, it's not going to make your life better. It's not going to enhance it in any way. Then the motivation and the effort are not there. And the likelihood of that goal getting accomplished is very, very unrealistic. So it was not smart enough. The SMART, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. You didn't put enough emphasis on each one of those characters, on each one of those elements. It is not really believable, and little commitment exists, okay? And that's like starting a class that you really hate to take, being forced to do something where you have no initiative to do that. So all of those actually will create the failure of your goal actually happening. Now, here's another one. When you keep changing or switching your goal, because what's happening is you have the goal written down, but you start second guessing yourself. And maybe the goal itself was a little unattainable. So you start changing things. Oh, well, I'm not going to make that deadline, so let me push it out a week. Oh, I'm not going to make that deadline now. Let me push it out 2 weeks. What you're doing is you're unfocused, you've not committed, but the actual thing is that the goal itself, the end result, may not be the right fit. The details involved, the steps to attain that goal may not be the right fit. You see, for goals to work, you have to have a little bit reinforcement. You have to make those little bitty successes. It's like a snowball rolling down a mountain where it picks up speed. It picks up debris along the mountain slope as it goes along. And it picks up snow as it goes along. And the closer you get to the bottom, the momentum builds and builds and builds. And that's what a really good goal is. Because as you go along, you're hitting your marks, and that prompts the motivation. When I was in school, when I was in elementary school, junior high and high school, I only had one graduation, and that was high school graduation. That was it. That was my goal, to graduate from high school. But nowadays, kids get graduations from pre-K. They get graduations from pre-K, from kindergarten, from elementary school. Heck, they may even get a graduation from every single grade. Now, I think there's a little too much in that, but what they're doing is they're putting in goals for kids to keep their momentum up, for things to look attainable, for success to be easier to reach. Now, the last one part of this is when the goal becomes secret, meaning you're not searching for help on it, you're not looking for support on it, you don't talk about it, you've kind of forgotten about it. When you don't write things down, that is what happens. When you don't put it down on paper, when you don't put that plan into existence, when you don't sit there and focus on it, it becomes a secret, and secrets in this way can often fade. So now let's look at goals and job search. Because right now, a lot of people are unemployed. I just had a really good friend of mine, graduate of the University of Memphis. He just told me last night that he was laid off back in October. And his wife doesn't work. They've got 2 girls. One is a senior in high school and the other one is in college. And he's really worried. So this is a big deal this year. There's a lot of people in job search out there looking for jobs. You've got a lot of industries that are not hiring. He's in oil and gas, and coming from Houston, I saw a huge majority of people that were unemployed in the oil and gas industry. But you've got other people like the space industry that is really going off, like the grocery industry. Those types of businesses are really growing. So you've got a divided sector. You've got some that are going down really low that are laying off people still. And you have other industries that are really rising up, and more emphasis is being put on those. So let's look in terms of job search, because direction in job search is really critical. I always compare it as if you've got to go to an event and you've got to dress for an event you're going to go to, but you don't know the event, you don't know anything about it, and you go into this warehouse full of clothes, all the different kinds of clothes, and you go in there, but you don't know what to buy. So you're just aimlessly going through looking, oh, this is pretty, oh, I like this, but you don't know what you need. You don't know what you want, and you don't know what you have to wear. So the success rate in that type of scenario is not going to happen. there will be no success because you don't have it all. You don't have the direction. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't have an ultimate goal. So let's look at job search. Let's look at immediate goals for job search. Number one, update your resume. That should be day one. Update your resume. Create a cover letter. Now, there may be people that say people don't really read cover letters. Cover letters is your summary introduction, really. Now, people may not want to read cover letters, but for me, whenever I was interviewing somebody, and still do, when I get the cover letter, it allows the person to speak and do a quick advertisement or commercial about who they are, what they want, and why I should hire them. The resume can't really do that. The resume just lists everything, but it doesn't speak to the person. So that's why a cover letter is still really critical. Now, you can't control if the person reads the cover letter, but it gives you a chance to have a voice to your resume. And that's what the cover letter is. Create a cover letter email, because now we're in the email world. So whatever your cover letter is in Microsoft Word, do the same template in email. Now, you should always then go in and change it up depending on who you're sending it to, but now you've got it in email format as well. Create a LinkedIn profile. I'm the biggest supporter of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the most undervalued platform out there, and companies, LinkedIn right now has over 630 million people on it. It's in 24 different languages. There is such a huge amount of companies. There are at least 30 million companies who have company pages on there, and it's growing every day. The ability to be found and network on LinkedIn is there. Yes, COVID hit this year and we couldn't go anywhere, but LinkedIn gives you that ability to network, and it's really easy. It really is. So immediately create a LinkedIn profile and make sure you have a profile picture. If nothing else, put a profile picture up. Create a one-sentence core message. You don't have to create a whole paragraph and memorize that. I'm all about creating sound bites, not memorizing a paragraph, but create at least a one-sentence core message. So for my photography, my one-sentence core message is I create magazine-style photo shoots for everyday people. Quick, simple, it tells you my style of photography, it tells you who my clients are. That's exactly what it does. And it's quick and it's easy, and I can say it just like that. So create a one-sentence core message. That's all you need. And then you have to know yourself then next. Okay, so I could talk about this for days. Short-term goals. Identify the job titles, because the job title that you've had that you're looking for may not be the same in every company. Larger companies and smaller companies, they're going to have different job titles. So make sure you identify at least 5 different job titles that you're looking for that are actually the same thing. It's just companies call them different things. The other thing is you want to identify your future boss's job titles as well. Yes, that is really critical, because that's who you want to network with as well. So you want to know what job titles that you should be looking for in terms of who would be your future boss. The next one is assess your strengths. I see this all the time. I actually teach for a nonprofit, and I teach job search to mid-level executives, people that have at least a college degree. Most of them have masters. Several of them have PhDs. A lot of them are engineers that have been laid off, and I teach them how to find a job in the internet age. A lot of them can't tell me what they're good at. They say, I'm a team player, I'm a project manager, I'm great with organization, I work well with people, but those don't tell me your strengths. They don't tell me, because everybody is going to use those. You really need to look at yourself and think about what it is that you do really well, and what skills that you may need to update. We can always be upgraded, always. My mom, when she passed away 4 years ago, was 82, and she was still upgrading her skill levels every year. She was doing that. You also should start a target company list, because you shouldn't just look for a job. You should look for the company that you want to work for. That's really important. So sit down and start a target company list so you have focus. So you have a goal of what you want to reach out to. Reach out to key network contacts immediately, or short term, start doing that. Let them know that you are available. Let them know what you're looking for specifically. The biggest thing that I see that hurts people is when they go and they contact somebody and they say, if you hear of a job, let me know. Okay, I don't know what job you're looking for, so I don't really know what to look for to let you know. Be specific. Be specific when you're talking to your network contacts about what type of job you're looking for. Be specific. That helps them and gives them direction in order to help you. Okay, let's talk about those intermediate term goals. Reassess your financial monthly budget. So if you've been unemployed, if you've lost your job, been laid off, then you may need to reassess what your monthly budget's going to be and cut back on some of those things. Create a resume specifically for job boards, because the resume you upload in a online job board is going to be read by a computer, and it reads documents so differently. It does not read pretty resumes. It needs to read computer looking resumes that to us look boring. You need to upgrade at least one skill that is needed. Really, even if it's a refresher course, gets you back in the game and gets you your motivation back up. Take a certification or a class that's needed. Do that in the intermediate. If that's needed for your job or to up level your job or to look for jobs that are a little bit higher than what you've been doing, then take a certification or any type of class that could give you a step up. Start setting weekly networking goals in your personal groups, in your professional groups, and in your groups. So your personal would be your friends, professional would be people you've worked with in the past, and your groups would be like your church group, your kids' soccer league group, your CrossFit group, any of those type of things, your book club, any of those type of things. Start setting weekly networking goals. How many people are you going to contact? Or are you going to reach out to, reconnect with, talk to, those kind of things. Join a professional networking group. Yes, even if it's virtual. So for me, how am I here today is actually an interesting story. So back in January, when I decided that I wanted to move, the very first thing I started doing was I started making my Twitter account more active. I started, because I'm a huge sports fan for Memphis, so I started really connecting with people in the Memphis community on Twitter. The next thing I did was Willie sent out an email in the last part of February, the first part of March, before COVID hit, about the alumni virtual book club. And I saw that as an opportunity to network with people that possibly were in the Memphis community. And that is why I signed up for that book club. And that is why I'm here today, because I showed up and made that a priority that I was, and I didn't read the book, I'm going to be honest, I didn't. But I still showed up. I still contributed to the conversation. And I networked and I showed the value. And my goal was to end up doing something like this. The next thing is just identify there with everybody working from home more now. The internet is out there. It can be used for good. Look for the good in that. So don't look for a networking group that is like 5,000 people. Look for something that's a little bit smaller. Don't look for 5. Look for one that you can start being really active in that's going to help benefit you, and it's going to put you in touch with people that can be beneficial to your job search. Long-term goals. Evaluate your financial budget yet again, because if I've know tons of people that have been in job search for over a year, because oil and gas was already going through an economic turndown late last year. And then when COVID hit, it just went even worse. So they've had to really evaluate that. And part of that is understanding if you need to take a part-time job, or you may need to take a full-time job if you're not currently working. You know, those are things that you need to think about long-term. because job search is not always going to be a sprint. You need to hope it's going to be a sprint, but you need to prepare that it's going to be a marathon and it's going to be a long-term task that's going to happen. That's being realistic. Now, the more you do and the more you put in, the more goals you set for yourself, the quicker it is you're going to get a job. Is your job area facing elimination? With artificial intelligence, that is happening for some jobs. So you should always research that to see if long-term that could affect your job. The next thing is your industry in a downturn. I talked about oil and gas, and I talked about the space industry. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, the space industry was going through a downturn in Houston. I saw so many people from NASA being laid off. And now that's the opposite. Oil and gas is going through a downturn, and then COVID hit. So all of those people are being laid off, but NASA is growing by leaps and bounds, no pun intended there. They are really growing. So look at your industry and see if it's in a downturn. What is going to be the forecast for that? Do you need to pivot into a different industry? Now, this is the biggest thing. So many times I hear people say, I've got to get started. It's not right yet. I'm waiting for it to get perfect. I've got to do some more changes before I start. Starting can be very overwhelming. And it's probably the biggest mental block out there is just that starting point. It's like when you stand at the edge of the deep end of the pool and you know you have to jump in and maybe you know the water is a little cold and you just can't get that motivation, that effort to just jump in. Don't let the starting stop you is really what we're saying. If you break your goals down into little bitty sections that are attainable, that you can accomplish, that is going to help the starting get started. But also know that if you are hesitant about starting because you want something to be perfect, perfection's never going to come. Perfection is just a disguise for procrastination. I'm sorry, procrastination is just a disguise for perfection. And perfection's just a disguise for fear. So don't let starting it stop you. Set something up so it's small so you can get that done, get that incentive going, get that effort going. You've accomplished one part of your goal, and that motivates you to do more. Okay, a quick recap. Identify and write down your goals. It's really, really important that you write down your goals. And I hear this all the time. People are like, I got it up here in my head. Up here in your head is something you can't see. And when you have all these things in your head, you get overwhelmed, you get kind of anxious. And more times than not, you're going to say, I don't even want to deal with that right now. I'm going to go do something else. So it's important that not only do you identify your goals, but that you write them down so that you can see them. And it also helps your vision be clear about how to get the goal and how to attain the goal. So always have a goal. I love talking about athletes because obviously they're famous and you can see their lives unfold in front of us. But Michael Phelps, the Olympic gold medalist swimmer, he had a really, really hard time after he won all of those gold medals and he retired because suddenly he had no goal, none. What was his goal going to be? He had attained everything that he had looked and been striving for his entire life. And suddenly he had no goal. And his life just kind of floated around and he started drinking more and having all these other issues. And he admits that. And that is the thing. Always have a goal. Because if you don't have any type of goal to look forward to, there's no motivation. There's no effort put out. You can become depressed and feel worthless, and all these other emotions can set in. Always have some type of goal, even if it is, I want to learn how to cook pasta, or I want to learn how to ride a bike, or I want to learn how to drive a car. I know those are kind of simple things, but anything. I want to learn belly dancing, anything. Always have some type of goal in mind, because that's what motivates us on a daily basis. Create those SMART goals for each one of those. That is really, really important. And that's going to help you succeed. Map your goals out on paper. So don't only write them down, map them out. I'm a visual person, so it really helps me when I take one thing and I start breaking it out and mapping it out how it's going to work. In job search, set those immediate, those short-term, those intermediate, and those long-term goals. Oftentimes, we don't want to have to come face to face with reality or what could or could not happen. But you're also doing yourself a disservice if you don't sit down and write those goals out and think about them. You're really, really hurting yourself in the end if you don't. Reassess on a regular basis, whether it's a week, a month, or a quarter. Reassess your progress, what you've accomplished. Do you need to add something else? Do you need to pivot a little bit, but not too often? But reassess how you're doing, because reassessing it and seeing how far you've come kicks in that motivation, makes your effort a little bit more. And that's what helps you attain your goals also. And be consistent. Be consistent. Being consistent, whether you want to or not, sets yourself up for success. So there was a great quote. Serena Williams was being interviewed a few weeks ago, and she said, there are days that I don't want to get up and work out. There are a lot of those days, but there's never a day that I want to lose. So her motivation is, I don't want to lose, therefore I need to get up every day and be consistent in my workout routine. Okay, recommended books. I have 2 for you. The first one is Designing Your Life, How to Build a Well-Lived, Joyful Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I know there's another one called Designing Your Work Life. We've read both of those, and this one is actually better overall than the work life one. So this is a really great book. It's been around for a while. They've updated it, but it's a really good book for job search and for life in general. The other one is What Color is Your Parachute? They come out with a new updated one every year. The author had died, I think last year, or the year before, and they're still continuing the book, and they've gotten somebody else to take over. And so the new one out for 2020, What Color is Your Parachute? And that kind of helps you if you're not sure where you want to go from here, or if you want to pivot in your career. This also kind of helps you figure that out and helps you set those goals. And that's by Richard Bowles. I don't know how to say his name. I'm just going to be honest. Okay. As I always love to end with this, you have to believe in yourself. You have to, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to. It's really important that you believe in your ability to do something. You stand up for yourself, and then other people see that. Okay, if you want to connect with us, and including Willie, you can find me on Instagram at Official Sandy Adams, also on Facebook at the same thing. I'm on LinkedIn at Sandy Adams-Studio, and I welcome any of you to please connect with me on LinkedIn. Just let me know that you watched this webinar, so I'll know who you are specifically and how you found me. I'm on YouTube at Sandy Adams Company, and then my website is sandy-adams.com. You can find all about my social marketing business, and also my photography and my travels. So my podcast, you can also find a link on my website as well. As I said, we have 2, and on U of M. On LinkedIn. So please connect with the University of Memphis on LinkedIn. And Willie, please connect with him. He is the manager of alumni relations, alumni engagement for the University of Memphis. So please connect with him as well. Now, the next class, we're going to take questions in just a second. The next class is December 10th. Persistence is key. It'll be the last, it'll be the 4th one in this 4-part webinar series. So make sure you go and register for it today so you don't forget. And as always, it'll be from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, I'll take questions now. Does anyone have questions? You can put them into the chat box, or you can put it into the Q&A chat box. To me would probably be easier, but if you have any questions, comments, I'll take those as well. I'll be happy to hear those now. Anyone? Anyone? Crickets? No one has a question? Okay, Dorothy says, how about discussing strengths? Great. Okay, so when I talk about strengths, really what you really need to think about, and I'm assuming you're talking about kind of in job search, Dorothy, think about your expertise is really what I would really talk about is think about what areas of your job that you're really good at. And I would pick 3. You may be really good at your whole job in general, but I would really think about the 3 parts of your job that you do really well. If you ask me about my photography, I'm going to say high school seniors, natural light, and on location shoots. Those are my 3 strengths. It doesn't mean that I can't do everything else well, but those are the 3 things that I focus on when I talk about things. And so instead of having to talk about every element of your job, you can actually focus on 3 things. That's really good. 3 is a great number. So when you talk about your strengths and your expertise, focus on those 3 things. Okay, the next one. How do you manage your energy while being a single mother? Sometimes it's hard for me to network because of my children. That's a really good question. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Hang on, I'll get to that in just a second. Kevin, what can you do when you write your goal for the day, week, month, and you fail to meet it? You have to ask yourself, Kevin, why you're not meeting those goals. And maybe it is you're making them too advanced. Maybe you need to cut them down just a little bit so that you get that momentum by achieving those a little bit. But you also have to look at, is the goal actually, do you actually want to achieve the goal as well? So start with that, Kevin. Start with the why you're not meeting them and look at it as, are you just setting yourself up for failure in the beginning, and do you need to change that around? So how do you manage your energy while being single mom? Sometimes it's hard. You know, my mom was a single mom growing up, and I don't have any children, but I can definitely see a lot of my friends have to deal with that. And what I would tell you is you have to figure out some way to take a little bit time for yourself to kind of help that. And I don't know the ages of your children, but somehow in order to just kind of decompress a little bit and to kind of build your momentum up a little bit as well. So try to do some things like that, even if it's while they're asleep or while they are in school. And I can't even imagine what it's like to homeschool kids right now if they're at home and you're trying to do this as well. But for you, that's why networking online might be the best option for you, because you're able to make those connections on LinkedIn and still put some emphasis into connecting with people, not having to go out and meet them physically in person. I hope that helps you. What is valuable to an employer? It's a good one. And it's something I've been talking a lot about. For me, when I worked in corporate America and I was hiring, the thing that I thought was the most important was effort. And what I mean by that is the effort that the person put in about getting the job, about finding out about the job, the effort they showed me in telling me that they wanted the job, the effort they put in the interview. All of that told me what type of person they were going to be as an employee. And a lot of times I could teach the skills, or the skills could be learned, but it was the effort that showed me what type of employee they wanted, or what type of employee they were going to be. The effort that they put out to get their job done, to me, that is the most important. Because if you have an employee that only does the bare minimum, it's actually going to bring the team down. They can be the smartest people in the world, but if they have a bad attitude, maybe they don't want to do something a certain way, and their effort is not very high, it's going to bring the whole team down. So to me, effort is the biggest thing to me. I think it's Shoquana. I hope I'm saying that correctly. my stress has went up. COVID has benefited me because everything is online. So I would say really, really, really utilize LinkedIn. I have really utilized it tremendously. I mean, I'm here today teaching you because I utilized LinkedIn. I utilized a virtual format to connect with Willie. That's how I'm here today, because I looked at things outside the box and how I could network with people. There are several relationships I've built up using LinkedIn, using Zoom chats to network with people. And that's what I'm going to say for you. That's probably the easiest, and you can be the most productive. So yes, absolutely. Diana says, where's the recording going to be uploaded? I missed some slides. I have no idea about that. I'm sure that the Alumni Association will send that out. Do you guys have any other questions? Dorothy says, difficult to use LinkedIn, you feel inadequate. Can I ask what specifically you feel inadequate about, Dorothy? That would kind of help me answer that, because, and don't feel like you're alone, because I hear that a lot. I teach about 20 to 30 people a week in ages from 30 to 65. And I hear that quite a bit, no matter what their degree background is. I hear that quite a bit. But can you kind of give me, even if you want, kind of give me like what area you feel inadequate about? Know that everybody else also has their own issues. Know that everybody else also in some capacity feels inadequate. There are times I feel inadequate. There are times I catch myself looking at other people going, wow, they're so successful. But everybody's at a different time period. Everybody has different skill sets. Everybody have different experiences. Everybody is different. And so you can't always, don't judge yourself based on other ones. Dorothy says, difficult to use LinkedIn. I feel inadequate, titles of jobs held, difficult to talk about myself. Dorothy, what I'm going to tell you is, and for anyone else out there, look at what you have accomplished. Sit down and just look at what you've accomplished. And look at it and accept it, even if you have to write that down every day. One of the challenges I give some of my students is I challenge them every night, actually every morning and every night, to write down 3 things they're grateful for. Okay. Especially when they're feeling inadequate, I have them write that down. When they do, they start realizing that they have much more going for them than they thought. So Dorothy, what I'm going to say is, everybody right now is in a lot of turmoil. Everybody is in a lot of upheaval. The friend that I just mentioned that lost his job, he has a very high position, but suddenly he doesn't know how he's going to get a job again. And you have to own yourself a little bit. And you have to sit down and start telling yourself that you are enough, you are good enough. And you have to sit down and really think about, what if people told you that you've done well? Think about that. Look back at the jobs you've done and look at what you enjoyed doing. And know that LinkedIn, there are so many people that don't know how to use it. They really don't. And all you've got to do is just try. Even if it's just one thing a day or one thing a week, you've got to try. You've got to try. And the thing about talking about yourself, don't talk about yourself. Educate people on what you do. That's what I tell people. Educate people on what you do. And that's when I said, find those 3 parts of your job that you know really well and talk about that. I feel much more comfortable talking about natural light photography than I do talking about studio lighting. I feel much more comfortable talking about motivation and job search than I do about ancient history, literally ancient history. So find those things, those 3 subjects of your job that you do well. And that is what you do. You educate people on what you've done. You educate people about your job, about your core expertise, those three things. So you're not talking about yourself, you're educating people on what you do. I hope that helps. Okay, guys, it's 1:59. I'm going to go off now unless we have time for one more question. If anybody has one more question. Thank you so much for everybody showing up today. I very much appreciate that. I hope that you sign up for the last webinar, which is the persistence one. And Dorothy, you're quite welcome. And all of you, I hope that I helped in some way. December 10th, persistence is key. That will be the fourth one in our series, and go and register today. I'm very excited. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm happy for you to connect with me on Instagram or Facebook as well. I'm happy to do so. Thank you guys so very much, and have a fantastic rest of the day.